Hi everyone. So I'm pretty sure I have titled this video something along the lines of secret repots. And so I want to start off by saying I have not intentionally been keeping secrets from you, as it were. There are two main reasons that these plants got repotted off of camera and not along on video with you guys. And one of those is the fact that I did state that one of my goals this year was to do more plant care off camera, because unfortunately filming every little bit of plant care that you do does take away a little bit from the therapeutic aspect of it. And so I've tried to be better this year about doing some chores by myself and not doing all my repots with you guys. However, these plants also got repotted off camera because every now and again, when things go wrong with a plant, I go into, oh crap, I've got to fix this right now mode. And when I go into, oh crap, I've got to fix this right now mode, I am not thinking about setting up equipment, lights, microphones, everything else. I just want to get the plant rescued, as it were. And so for most of these plants, with the exception of one that we're going to look at today, this was kind of a like, oh crap, I need to take care of this situation for various reasons, and I will explain as we go along today. But one of these plants you actually already knew I needed to repot and why, so I think we're going to start with that one today, and I will start off by reminding you exactly what was going on and why it needed to be repotted. But that is my oh so beautiful Dischidia, also commonly known as a million hearts because of these cute little heart-shaped leaves on this plant. Now, I did get this plant off of Palm Street. I think it's been about a year, almost a year and a half ago now. And when I received it, I did notice that it was 3 plants in one pot, and they were plugs. Now, they were not the fabric wrapped plugs that I've talked about before. They're not the plastic cage type situations that we see on, like, for example, aglaonemas. It was the weird, very spongy, like, texture plugs that people use to start plants in. And I knew it was going to be a problem if I didn't repot it and remove those, because they're great for starting a plant like this. But this is very similar to a Hoya, and it likes to grow epiphytically. It likes to have a nice chunky aeroid mix type soil. So it has been repotted into my epiphyte mix for that reason. But because it wants that chunky, loose, airy soil, staying in those dense plugs was not a good idea. And unfortunately, I did leave it in there too long, and the roots did start to rot. So I knew something was going wrong because the plant was not drying out nearly as fast as it had been. The soil was staying wet longer, and I was like, okay, something's up. I need to repot this now. I've waited too long. I was like kicking myself. So I took it out, and sure enough, the only roots that were still left were very minimal, and they were inside of those plugs. And so the problem with those plugs is it is so tedious to remove, you guys. That's another reason I did not feel that bad about not filming repotting this plant, because it took so freaking long to get that stuff off. It seriously, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a really dense sponge is what it's like. And trying to break it off without breaking off roots is like next to impossible. So I did end up breaking off a lot of the roots. There was minimal roots left. One of the plants had already completely died off. And so I was already kind of upset about that. So then I was getting worried that the remaining 3, there were 4 plants. I think I said there were 3 in there. There were 4 plants in the original pot. One had already died off. The other 3, I managed to get all of that off, but there was just hardly any rootage left when I potted it up. So this was originally in a approximately 4-inch pot. It is now in like a tiny little 3-inch pot. Let me take it out of here so I can show you. So just a little pot here. It is, like I said, now in my epiphyte mix. And this was kind of a iffy situation. And obviously a very long, very beautiful plant has grown a lot in the time that I've had it. And so I was really concerned that I was either going to lose a whole other plant or 2 in here in this process, or that I was just going to have a lot of leaf die off. And unfortunately, because the newer leaves are at the bottom on a plant like this, the die-off's going to happen with the older leaves up here first. And so I was worried I was going to end up with a lot of bald vines like this. Now, this is a different situation that we're going to talk about in a second. I have had leaf loss happen since repotting this, and it happened pretty quickly. I was a little nervous, but I was like, okay, we're not going to panic. And so I just kind of stayed calm. I waited until the substrate dried out about 3/4 of the way because there were hardly any roots. So they were all way up here. So I didn't want to necessarily let it dry all the way out like I will when it has fully established roots, because I didn't want them to be dry for too long and then desiccate and, kill off the plants. So I've just been patient. I've already forgotten exactly how long it has been since I did this. I checked it yesterday and now I've forgotten. Let me double check again. Okay, guys, so June 19th was when I repotted this. So it's been a little over 2 months. So the fact that we have not lost an insane number of leaves is really good. I also have noticed that over time, some of the leaves have gotten more plump and more firm, which is good because that means that they have fully, I guess, recovered, if you will, but I do still have some. I don't know how well you're going to be able to tell on camera, but for example, this vine over here, hopefully you can see. If not, I'll try to do some tighter up footage with a different device, but the leaves are a little bit wrinkly. Can you kind of see how they look a little bit pruny? That's because for some reason this vine, this plantlet, I'm not even sure if it's the whole plantlet. Let me see if I can tell. Okay, good news is it's not the entire plantlet. It does just seem to be a few of the vines are just not plump, I guess I should say, as they should be, but some of the other ones are. So there is a possibility that it may just kill off those few vines just because it's trying to give enough resources to the other vines, because there are quite a few vines coming off of this particular plantlet in here. But the good news, you guys, is I did finally see new root growth. And of course, it's in the hardest to get to section here. So let me try to move these vines to the side so you can see what is going on. So the good news is there is at least one plantlet in here that is very well rooted now, even after just a few months. You see all of those nice new roots down in there? And those could be coming from more than one plantlet, but the good news is there's one that has fully recovered. So I am not potentially going to lose this entire plant, which I kind of was slightly worried about, you guys, when I had to remove the plug situation. Oh, I do see we have more roots starting over here now too, on the opposite side. So that means we probably do have at least 2 of the plantlets forming roots in here now. So I have started letting this dry pretty much all the way out. I am still having some minor leaf loss. Ugh, I can talk today, you guys. But what I have noticed is where I had the all white vines. So that is what this vine was. This vine looked very much like this vine right here, in the sense that it was all white leaves. And I had mentioned the last time we had looked at this plant that eventually it was a good possibility that all of those leaves were going to die off. That's really what I think has happened here. Is it was never going to be able to support all those white leaves for that long anyway. And so those were some of the first ones that died off. Now, the good news is, hopefully you can see back here at the base of this vine, that leaf right by my finger that of course it doesn't want to focus on, but that leaf right there, I think you can still tell, is half green, half white. So I can cut this back and it should hopefully start to produce more leaves with green, because the leaf behind that one is all green except for a little white on the edges. So it's not like I've just lost this whole vine. I can trim it back. I pretty much just left it here so I could show you kind of what's been going on. But like, I'm so excited that it has basically recovered, with the exception of some of those vines that are looking a little pruny. But if I lose, I think there's like 3 like that on there. If I lose 3 vines, there's still a lot of beautiful vines here. And one of the key things to remember here though is, even if oh my gosh, you guys, it's flowering. I just noticed it is flowering. All right, we're definitely doing okay. This plant has never flowered for me before. They haven't, do I have any that, oh, these ones up here have opened. Okay, they're tiny. I'm gonna use a different camera that I can get better close-up pictures so you can see this one that's open, but you should be able to at least, where'd it go? Where was that one vine I was just looking at that had a lot on it? Oh, there it is. You should hopefully be able to see these. If I hold it up, you see those little white things on there? Tiny little white ball looking things. Those are itty bitty white flowers. So that's exciting. And the ones on this vine I just showed you, they haven't opened yet. But like I said, I will have put some better footage of the one that is open up there. And I do see this on a lot of the vines. Also, it was making me think for a second, like, oh crap, I hope I don't have mealybugs because they're about the size of a mealybug and they're white, but no, it is flowering. So that is super exciting. So back to what I was saying, when you do have a plug situation like that and you remove the plug, a couple of things to remember. Depending on how many roots you have left, you're probably going to have to go down to a smaller pot. Do not put it in an overly large pot, especially for a plant like this that is epiphytic in nature and really doesn't want its roots to be wet for a super long time. The other thing is just don't panic because it is going to take a while for the plant to reestablish roots. And so you are probably going to lose some leaves. Some things could happen. I highly recommend using a clear pot as always so that you can keep an eye on it and see how much it's drying out and see if you see new roots developing. And once you see new roots developing, that's when you're going to want to kind of adjust your watering. So if you did lose almost all the roots, because I mean, I had like hardly any, like 1/2 inch bits of roots, probably less than that on some of the plantlets in there, you are going to want to be mindful to let it not dry too far out, because think about, once again, where those roots are in the pot. If they're all up here, you don't want to be waiting till it dries out down here because then they're going to be dry for too long. But once you start to see them, like I showed you, developing and going down, then you want to let it dry out a little bit more, assuming it is a plant like this that does, once it's established, like to dry all the way out. If it's not a plant that likes to dry all the way out, you're still going to have to kind of tweak your watering a bit, but not quite as much, right? So I'm just super happy that this plant is doing well. It is still living in my bathroom in an east-facing window. It was originally hanging on a towel bar by the window on the wall, but that's because it was in a 4-inch hanging basket. Since this obviously is not a hanging basket, all I've done is I've given it a cute little cover pot. And I set it on the ledge above my tub on top of this little candle holder so that it has some room to trail. And then these bits that are longer than this trail over that ledge, it's kind of like a step situation above my tub. So it looks real cute up there. George, also, my cat George, has been out of nowhere. I don't know, you guys, out of nowhere, he has decided that he wants to lay in that ledge. And there's more room in the ledge right now because I still have my lemon lime and my red maranta upstairs from when I had them sequestered for flat mites last year. And so he never really got up and laid in that window before. And I mean, they've been up there for almost a year. So he's had room, but in the last like month, he's just out of nowhere decided that that's like his new favorite place to lounge during the day. I think it might have something to do with the fact that his little brother Scooter can't get to him up there because Scooter's my cat that only has 3 legs. So he can't really jump up there. And sometimes, sorry guys, it was actually a reminder for my cats that I need to go buy them some more treats today. But Scooter thinks it's funny to chase George. George does not like this. I don't know why George is so terrified of Scooter, because George is like literally twice the size of Scooter. But he has figured out that that is the one place that Scooter can't get to him. So I think that's why he likes to go up there, if he just wants like a reprieve from Scooter's big kitten energy. And so he's been laying up there. So I had to kind of make sure I moved this off to one far side because he was kind of laying on the vines at one point, not like intentionally, but the good news is he hasn't like been playing with it or anything like that. He is very good. George has always been a saint about the plants, you guys. Like, I can't say the same for Theo and Scooter, but George has always been a saint. So hasn't had any problems with George, other than the fact that George did accidentally knock it over one time, but it didn't fall all the way over. It just kind of like tilted. So everything was okay, but I am so excited about this plant and so happy to give you guys an update on what happened, even though I did do all of that off camera with you. So let me put this one back down and let me grab our next plant. And our next, I think, what do I want to look at next? I think we're going to look at the 2 Philodendron that I had to deal with next. One of them I know I had mentioned before that I knew I needed to repot. So let's start with that one. Okay, so this is my Philodendron cordatum. This has also been living in the east-facing window in my bathroom, hanging. So same window as the Dischidia that we were just looking at. And I had mentioned that the last time that I repotted this, first of all, I repotted it into one of these shallow pot liners, which I've mentioned recently. My plants that I put in these, like some of them have done okay, like my succulents have done okay in these, but all of my philodendron and like pothos and plants like that, for whatever reason, they have all, and syndapsus even, they've all sent their roots just straight to the bottom and they just coil around super tight at the bottom and it looks like they never spread anywhere else. Well, that had happened with this plant. So before I potted this plant into one of these, it was originally in a 6-inch pot. It was full and beautiful, just like my Philodendron Brasil, super bushy, lush. And then when I potted it in here, I kind of regretted it because it just didn't look as full because I went to such a like wider pot and I never really got around to like propagating and planting back in the top to try to make it look more full. And then it shot all of its roots down to the bottom and started twirling them around. And it just had like nice long vines, but they started getting really bald at the top. So kind of like what you're seeing here, but there were more vines than you're seeing right now. And I was kind of like really disappointed. And so I kept thinking, I don't know what I should do. And then when all the roots were being weird and going straight to the bottom, at one point I did what I call a pot extension. So basically I took bits of plastic, hold on, let me set this down, and kind of stuck them up inside the edge of this so that it extended it so it was a deeper pot. And that seemed to help for a bit, but it still never spread roots further up. And so I don't know, it just kept getting weirder and weirder and then it started losing more and more leaves. So all the leaves started doing this. I left this one here so you guys could see. And that's what happened. They would just do that and then they would fall off of the upper parts of the vines. And the whole situation was just kind of like, I don't know, it was really frustrating. I wasn't liking it. I really waited too long to do anything about it too. But finally, it was just losing so many leaves and I was like, I need to figure out what the heck is going on with you. So I just decided one day when I had time, I was like, I'm just gonna repot it. So I got it out of that shallow pot liner and you guys, I can't even believe. So it was still getting super rooted. I mean, it was massively root bound. But what had happened was where it had coiled around the bottom, yes, it kept coiling around and around and around. But what I couldn't see that it was doing was it was burrowing up through the center of the soil to the point where it kind of, the best way I can explain it is it almost looked like a drill bit that's conical, right? Cone, yes. Conical shaped like this, a drill bit like that. That's what it looked like. The roots were just swirling and swirling and swirling and pushing upward, creating this cone, oh my gosh, you guys, I swear I can talk today. Cone type shape that was just pushing up the middle. So no wonder it was having issues. It was massively root bound. There was this big old like hollow root space underneath it. And so I ended up deciding to root prune it and take it into, I think this actually is a 7-inch pot. Yes. So this is a 7-inch pot. This is technically 8-inch diameter, but this is deeper, right? And since I said one of my issues I had was that I went to this wider pot originally and it didn't look as full. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try to fix all the things at once. Was that the best idea? I don't know, but I'm like, I'm already making a mess. Let's just do it. So I decided to root prune it and put it into this pot. Now, normally when I root prune, and I tell you guys this all the time, you don't want to remove more than 1/3 of the roots at a time. But you guys, when I tell you I cut in to that root ball where all of that winding conical business was going on, and I was like, I didn't even remotely get to the top of that situation. It was insane. That's like how massively rooted it was, so, and root bound. So like, I was like, I think I need to cut some more. And so what I ended up doing was first I cut the 1/3 off the bottom, then I shaved some off the sides. And then when I looked at it and I was like, this is still so massively root bound, I ended up actually removing half of the root ball, like cutting in half and then still shaving some off of the sides. I think it was definitely the way to go. I knew when I did it, I was going to incur more leaf loss than I would have if I had not done it that way. And I went ahead and trimmed some of the worst of the vines. So these were actually the least worst vines. So they still have a lot of leaves at the bottom. It is looking like it's gonna kill off some of these leaves. You can see they're still yellowing. So I did this around the same time as the Dischidia. So it's been, come on, always wants to focus on my face, almost, or a little over 2 months now. And so I basically had other vines though, where it was like a long vine like this and there were only leaves on this part at the bottom. So I went ahead and trimmed all those back because there was no need for it to be putting its energy and try to keep those alive when they were looking that bad basically. And then I left these long ones because I didn't want to trim too much off. But I also had several, I think there were 2 plants that I had propagated from this in my inventory of plants for my local plant shop sales. And I think they were both like little 3-inch plants. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to put them in the top to make this more full. So that's what I ended up doing. So this technically now is original mama plant plus 2 of mama's propagated babies up here in the top. And you can probably see that propagated babies are the ones that are looking more green and lush. They're doing great. The original mama plant is the one where we're still seeing some leaf kill off, but that's not unexpected. I mean, I did a lot to this plant. Now, I did also decide to repot this into my forest floor mix instead of my epiphyte mix. So it was originally in my epiphyte mix, and I started questioning a while back if my climbing philodendron actually would prefer forest floor mix. And I have honestly been transitioning most of them into forest floor mix, and I'm finding that they seem to be liking it better. And I'm not having as big of an issue with roots going straight to the bottom of the pot. I have not found this to be necessarily the best idea. For example, my epiprimnum. I feel like epiprimnum are pretty like sturdy plants though. Like they do fine in either of those mixes, but I just feel like the philodendrons want a little bit more moisture retention than they had been getting. So I put it into the forest floor mix and I just made a mental note of it's going to take longer to dry out, keep a close eye on it. And you guys, this plant is taken off. So we've got new roots going on in the pot. So that's a good sign. Now, I can't really say per se if they're coming from the propagated plants or the mama. Actually, this root right here is actually coming from one of these vines from right where it was hovering above the soil. So it shot a root off of, basically an aerial root, off of one of its nodes that was just a little bit above the soil line. That's what you're seeing right there. So I'm not sure how the remaining original roots that are in the center here are doing, but I'm not really that worried about it because it is at least creating new roots, so it should be okay. Now, I'm still incurring some leaf loss, but like I said, I'm not worried about that because that's kind of expected because I did a lot to this plant. But the good news is we do have new growth going on. There are new growth points happening all over this plant, both on the new vines and then on the original vines, even these ones that are a little bit bald at the top have new growth points going on. So we're gonna be okay, but it's gonna take a while for it to become full trailing, beautiful bushiness like it was when I originally bought the mama plant. Well, not even that. I'll say tell how it was a few years after I bought the original mama plant, because it did take a long time for the original mama plant to start to trail. It was very short up on top like this when I got it. So I mean, it's going to take some time, but eventually we're going to get it back to looking nice and full and beautiful. And now I know not to wait that long when I see roots swirling around in the bottom of the pot like that to repot it. But it's going to look so much better, you guys, so much better. And eventually, as it starts to get more trailing vines, I will cut these ones that are kind of funky off at the top completely back so that it doesn't look all wonky. All right. So our next plant that we're going to look at is another philodendron, and it actually is my Philodendron Brasil. This was a plant that I knew probably needed to be repotted because I haven't repotted it in like 3 years, but I messed up with my Philodendron Brasil and I'm not happy about it. Let me grab it. Okay, you guys, so my Philodendron Brasil, which was one of my biggest, bushiest plants. It's not quite as big and bushy now, and I will explain what had happened, but hopefully you can see up here at the top, we have the same thing kind of going on that was going on the last plant we looked at, where the vines were starting to get bald up top, but obviously still bushy down below. Okay, so what happened? I started noticing that a lot of the leaves were dying off higher up on the vines like that, and I was like, oh crap. I kind of knew immediately what was probably happening, and I still have some leaves dying off on it, and it was 100% my fault. So basically, this plant did need to be repotted. It was drying out more frequently because it needed to be repotted. And I totally went too long one time on accident between watering on it, and I dry rotted it. And so I got this plant down one day and I got it out of the macrame hanger, which I want to take a second to tell you guys about this. So one of you commented, I think it might have been in my annual full plant tour video, that you couldn't wait to see me repot this plant because I was going to struggle to get it out of the macrame hanger because of how full it was. And it was way more full looking than this at that point in time. And I said, oh no, it's not going to be that difficult. And let me show you why it's not going to be that difficult. So a while back, I decided to make it easier to remove my macrame plant hangers by cutting them and adding these little clips. So I cut the strings, I sewed them around these little clips. And so, oh, it's so hard to do with one hand holding this really heavy plant. So now I can just unclip them. Hopefully you guys can see that. I just unclip these and then I just pull the top off and get the plant out without it being all tangled up. I will say, if I don't have fingernails right now, it makes them, I just clip them too. It makes it a little hard to get them off, but I'm gonna take these off and so I can show you how easy it is to remove this. Okay, I got them all unhooked. So now the top part of this is off, and all I have to do is pull the plant off like that. Ta-da, there's your helpful tip for the day. Make it easier to take your macrame hangers off by adding little clips. Okay, let me get the pot out of the way. Okay, so good news is this plant is starting to recover, you guys, but I had to remove virtually all of the substrate off of the plant, the old substrate. And I mean, a lot of the roots, so many of the roots were dry rotted, you guys, and I was just so freaked out and worried about it. Now, this plant was originally in my basic mix. That's how long it had been since I had repotted it. And so I did go ahead and decide to also put this one in my forest floor mix for two reasons. One, it had done fine in my basic mix. And since, like I said, I've kind of come to the conclusion of I feel like my philodendrons are preferring more moisture than my epiphyte is giving, I decided I'm just going to do the forest floor mix for this one too. And I did not add any additional propagations or anything up in the top. I did have some I could have done, but this plant was always looking nice and full. It was originally in a 6-inch pot. Because I had to remove so many roots that had rotted, I just put it back into a 6-inch pot. This is just a slightly deeper 6-inch pot. And of course, I proceeded and am proceeding to still lose some leaves, and I accidentally somehow broke off multiple vines, you guys. That's one of the reasons it's not looking quite as bushy as it was. But I did also, in the process of repotting this, discover that a bunch of vines had grown back up the plant. So that's another reason that it was looking so excessively bushy, but it still doesn't look bad, you guys, at all. But because, once again, just like the other two plants we looked at, this plant's growing down this way. So all the new leaves are at the bottom. So when you lose leaves, you're gonna lose the oldest ones first. And that's why they start to look bald at the top. This is one of the downsides of trailing plants. So eventually some of these I'm gonna have to trim back up just to make it look better, but I don't wanna mess with it too much right now because I still feel like it's in recovery mode. Now, the good news is I'm not seeing any signs of additional rot in this pot. The really good news is, and this has changed drastically in the last week, you guys. I was seeing the start of new roots growing the last time I watered it, which was probably about, I don't know, 7 days ago or so, but now I'm seeing way, way more roots. And these are from the mama plant because, like I said, I did not propagate back into the top. I did this plant at the same time as the cordatum, and we are filling back in. So that is good. So this plant's gonna be okay. I mean, it's popping off. You can see all this new growth sticking up here at the top. It is actively growing. but it's still killing off some leaves in the process, which is not surprising because it lost so many roots. But we'll get it back to looking even bushier than it does now, back to how it was looking. But I just need to be more careful about not underwatering my plants, and especially not underwatering my ones that I know are really root bound and already in need of a repot, because I mean, that's just recipe for disaster. Now, also, this plant was not previously in a clear pot, so it wasn't as easy for me to tell how much it had dried out. So that's another thing that's gonna help now, is that it is in a clear pot like this. But yeah, I just, when it started killing off all those leaves at the top, you guys, that's when I went into panic mode and I was like, oh my God, I knew immediately I had dry rotted this plant, and I was like, just get it down, do it right now. Had to take it outside to hose all that dead root and old soil off. And I mean, I was not happy about the situation. And so yeah, try not to do that. Like, a standard repot is so much easier than a, oh, I screwed something up repot. They go way quicker. They're way less stressful, right? Like, I think that's another reason I don't like necessarily always doing repots when I discover something's wrong on camera. I want to do some of them on camera with you guys so you can see what I'm doing. And I definitely, even if I do it off camera like this, I want to share this with you so you know my experience and you know what to do if you experience the same thing. But also sometimes I just like, if I was filming this right now, I would probably sound so cranky and so angry that people would be like, geez, she needs to adjust her attitude. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of cussing. There was a lot of cussing involved, you guys, but we're gonna make a full recovery. All right, there's only one other plant that I did repot not that long ago off camera. This one didn't really have necessarily anything wrong with it, but I just wanted to give you an update on it too, because I feel like we haven't looked at it in a while. So let me grab it. Okay, so this is my Alocasia frydek, which technically I don't think it's actually called a frydek. I don't know. I keep getting different, oh my gosh. There's like all kinds of pollen all over my desk now, I guess from the Dischidia flowers. But anyways, Alocasia frydek, I've heard like conflicting things, but I think the frydek is now technically the name for the variegated version of this plant, and the all green version like this is not actually considered a frydek, even though we all call it frydek. I'm pretty certain. I will flash whatever the actual scientific name I can figure out is for you guys up on screen. But that is my basic understanding. But just an update, this was gifted to me by one of you guys as a corm, because I had mentioned I've always wanted to own one of the all green varieties of this. I love the variegated version too, you guys, don't get me wrong, but I just know that variegated Alocasia can be a little bit iffy sometimes, although I have heard from people the frydeks are a little bit more stable than some of the other variegated varieties. But I really like how the all green variety looks too. But I had mentioned that because Alocasia are such spider mite magnets, I kind of have come to the point in my plant journey that I don't even want to buy Alocasias that are actually like full plants like this from stores anymore, because I just feel like they already have spider mites every time I see them. And so I had mentioned any new Alocasias I get, I want to just grow from corms, because I have a proven process that I've had 100% success rate with for growing them from corms. So one of you guys sent me a corm. I grew this in my same process that I use. If you're not familiar with my process, I'll link the video down in the description below for you for that. It's only like, it's less than 15 minutes. It might be like an 11-minute type video or something like that, but used that process to grow this, then potted it up in a little 2-inch clear pot. And it was doing one of those things where the roots had kind of gone to the bottom and were just kind of swirling around in the bottom and not spreading elsewhere. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And it didn't really look like it necessarily needed to be repotted, but it kept just giving me 2 leaves, and then immediately it would kill off one of them when it pushed another one out. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and take it up a pot size, even though I don't feel like it's super root bound, and just see if that helps. Now, this has always been in my forest floor mix. That's what I prefer for my Alocasia. They really like it. You could probably get away with basic mix for them as well. Also, if you're not familiar with my soil videos, that's another like 10-minute long video. I'll link that down below too for you guys. But I was just kind of like, I think maybe giving it some more room, maybe that will just help. And it has, because now we have 3 leaves. Now we are starting to kill off the 3rd leaf, but this is an improvement, you guys, because before I would get 1 new leaf and it would kill off the 2nd leaf, and then 1 leaf and kill off the 2nd leaf. So at least we're maintaining 3 now. And so I will say though, I got a little freaked out yesterday when I was looking at this plant preparing for this video, because hopefully you can see that weird speckling right there on the leaf. Made me think this plant might have spider mites. I'm like, why do you have this? I still don't know why it has it. I broke out my microscope. I went over every inch of these leaves and I felt like, I mean, they're real fragile. That one, they're not like, this is the most established one. This is the newest one. It's not even fully hardened off. And I was trying not to like bend it, break it, but I was like, I need to see if there are spider mites. So I checked the fronts and backs of the leaves. I honestly didn't see anything. So I don't know what caused this kind of speckling that is going on here. I don't know if something just happened when this leaf was unfurling or what, but I went ahead and gave it a spider mite treatment, even though it wasn't due for one. Went ahead and gave it one anyway yesterday just to be on the safe side. This has been living in, I don't know what that was. Somebody drove by blasting their horn. I have had this living in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet ever since I potted it up for one main reason. I'll say two main reasons. First of all, it is a little bit higher humidity situation, even though my cabinet doesn't have a humidifier. It's not weather stripped. Looks like right now it's 65% humidity in there. My house right now is averaging around like 50, maybe 48. So it's not like drastically different, you know what I mean? But also I feel like it's harder for spider mites to get to my alocasias if they're in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet. It is nowhere near like a window, a door to outside or anything. Like I just feel like the odds of spider mites finding plants in that cabinet is slimmer than if I just had this living by a window, because all my alocasia that live by windows for the most part get spider mites, right? So I'm happy that it seems like I don't have spider mites, but I definitely think repotting this was the right way to go. And it has started to actually spread roots further around in the pot since I did that. And I believe I did this around the same time. I think I did this on the same day as the cordatum. It may have been like a few days before, but around the same time. And you can see there's a brand new root pushing right there. We got more tiny roots pushing around in there. I never even removed the Starbucks sticker. So, and at the time that I did this, hopefully you can see there's more tiny roots down in there. At the time that I did this, I was out of clear pots that were 4-inch pots. And I really wish I had had one, but I just also didn't want to wait. And I didn't have time back then to make a trip out to Peter's Planters like I did recently to get more clear pots. So eventually, once this gets some more roots in it, I will transfer it to a standard nursery pot that's clear instead of a Starbucks cup. But I definitely think this has helped. And I definitely have seen the leaves have gotten bigger. So I've already lost like a lot of older leaves since repotting it, you guys. But the leaves have sized up considerably. So I'm just excited to see how much more this takes off. And yeah, and eventually when it gets big enough, it's not going to fit in the cabinet. So I don't know what I'm going to do then. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I don't really have a good place outside the cabinet. I don't always think things through when I'm like, oh yeah, send me a corm. Where am I going to put this plant when it gets big? But we'll figure it out when we get there. But all in all, super happy with how this one has been doing. All right, you guys, well, those are the updates on all of the plants that I secretly repotted without you. Hopefully you guys have found this video to be helpful. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!